So another week, another The Boys recap, review, and breakdown. This is for Season 3, Episode 4. And oh my, things this episode were definitely is crazy and wacky and pretty mad, especially towards the end with Homelander constantly, turning it up a notch, especially as what we said, in the first 3 episodes. He is more emboldened now than ever to just really just be like, you know what, I do whatever I want. And he's doing exactly that. And, with Supersonic, I know I'm meant to be talking about this later. That was very obvious. That was coming. I think we spoke about that in last week's video. I was like, yeah, Supersonic, how long are you gonna last? Oh, he didn't even really make it past the next episode. Now we finally got Jensen Ackles out of his frickin' stasis chamber as well. Things are gonna get even more interesting. A few theories to chuck into that. And most certainly, I welcome yours down in the comments below. I read every single comment, so I'm dying to see how you think they're gonna really progress this. And even that of some theories from what they're pulling from the source material. But starting off with today's episode, it opened up with Soulja Boy singing, Jensen Ackles doing his thing. This somewhat mirrors the end of the episode, because obviously another bit of Soulja Boy, some more context of the days of old, and then at the very end with him being released. Also showing MM's just like absolute frustration here. Also very brief flashbacks to him and his family when he was younger, even kind of playing with a little toy car. As we know, his family was Supe collateral damage from that of Soulja Boy. And then again, mirroring the end of the episode where when faced with him, right in front of him, I don't know if it was so much fear, it's like he was bewildered. Like, there he is, this guy I've been wanting some literal, no pun intended here, payback on, and he didn't exactly know what to do there. And then what can you do? Like, Soulja Boy is right there, plus a modified Soulja Boy, and that could very well come into the weapon against Homelander. But again, theories on that in a little bit. Up next, we pick up right at the end of last episode where obviously Butcher vomited on Hughie and he's confronting him about Compound V. Butcher is obviously playing it off like, it's a temporary measure, we did this to gunpowder, we got what we wanted to know, end of. But clearly, it's not really end of. As we know, things get a bit nuts at the end of this episode, and I am still wondering about addictive properties. I don't feel like we're getting that so much out of Butcher, but already within the first dose of Hughie, he seems to be really kind of falling in love and getting mesmerized by the temp V. So we'll talk about that more towards the end, but I am really wondering what the consistent use of this will be, as Ryan teased, like, your blood smells funny to Butcher, so it'd be pretty messed up if, like, there's really severe consequences on not only Butcher, but Hughie, and I wonder what Starlight will be thinking of this when she finds out. Now, things with Stan Edgar got super juicy this episode, and you know me, on this channel, whether that's Mando, or, I haven't really spoken about Breaking Bad here or Better Call Saul, but I'm a big fan of Giancarlo Esposito, and things didn't exactly go his way this episode, but I have to give it to the guy, especially when confronted with Homelander quite a bit later. He is still just could have his head taken off him at any second, but his heart rate is remaining calm, even as he's still trying to stick it to Homelander later on, and this is all after what we're getting into right now. So he instructs Victoria Newman to discipline Homelander. The way he views it is that obviously Homelander's acted out before, now more than ever, and now more than ever he's testing boundaries. But Victoria Newman is pretty scared of Homelander, and the difference between her and Stan Edgar, even though she stabbed Stan in the back a little bit later on, is that she really does have a weakness, and that is Zoe. And that's the very reason why she injects her with Compound V later on. It's kind of this messed up thing, but at the same time she's kind of doing it to protect her, because she knows that she has this weakness, unlike Stan. Stan's pretty cold, even willing to throw Newman to the dogs if ever necessary, as somewhat proven by Homelander later, saying that, look, he had this file on you and he could have basically exposed that whenever and wherever if he ever wanted to, which obviously kind of made her feel like maybe she did the right thing in throwing him out to the dogs and betraying him. But she's not really on Stan Edgar's playing field. If she has Zoe, Homelander could just do what he did to Supersonic to her, God knows what, so I guess in her mind she's protecting her through giving her some kind of ability, albeit a little bit later on, the pain that you go through when injected with Compound V, you saw like a back and a spine crinkling, it could be unimaginable depending on what powers that you manifest. Meanwhile, with the boys, we see Frenchie take Butcher to little Nina. I definitely love their interaction. She really just still wants Sherry, but he does give her a bunch of money to kind of smooth some things over. And as a result, when going to Russia, and where Nina locates the weapon, which again, this whole weapon thing we've been talking about, there isn't really a weapon, but technically there is, with perhaps Soldier Boy's new ability, and that comes into what happens to Kimiko a little bit later. They have to do a job for her. It was either that or, you know, Sherry's head, so to speak. But I did love the kind of tension and somewhat chemistry Butcher had with Nina. Very, very similar people, as kind of pointed out by Kimiko later, where she was saying that, you know, let's get away, they're all just as bad as each other. Nina and Butcher are just the same person, just two different genders. It's pretty hilarious, and I think that's why they really kind of dug each other. To be honest, I was kind of expecting a cut of a different kind of scene, if you know what I mean, between the next scene we got. We also have Hughie watch the video, and he's with Starlight, the hashtag Homelight or whatever it was thing, and you can see how, like, down under Starlight is. Whatever it takes, as she says, this is what it takes, but she's like, Hughie, this has to work. This is just slowly building up that pressure of this needs to be done. Like, this cannot be endured for too much longer, let alone for what Starlight has endured at the end of this episode. On top of this, things are getting really bad. The kettle is boiling up until the point of where we're halfway through now in this season, so things and shit is going to get very serious with this resistance against Homelander, you have to think. But there's also just things that can compromise that, as things were compromised this episode. God damn it, Supersonic, I knew where that was going as soon as he started up trusting A-Train. But not to get too far ahead of myself, now we have Hughie taking this temp V. I'm wondering if that's going to be a weakness. Ironically enough, even though it makes him strong and, you know, teleport and stuff, what if he just can't really get off of it? He likes the power, because one thing about Hughie, guys, as we know, and a big thing about his dialogue with Butcher and almost practically begging him in this moment as well, how Homelander basically just walked all over him like he was a bully, and in that scene a little bit later on with Butcher, with how he's saying he just felt like he was being walked over by every bully he's ever had, and he was powerless, and Starlight saved him again. He's desperate more than ever to feel that power. Way more than Butcher, to be honest. So I think this could mean pretty bad things for Hughie, and he might even, despite everything they go through this season, wouldn't be surprised if he kind of loses Starlight somewhere along the way, due to maybe what he's kind of turning himself into to achieve the means to the end. I loved Starlight getting really kind of ready to go in this moment, though. Her eyes were fired up. I'm just, especially, again, with the end of this episode, I can't wait, and I hope that she gets a moment where she just slaps down on Homelander. Like, she's been waiting for it just as much as, you know, technically Maeve as well. And Maeve is another thing this episode, and it makes you think about where things are going to go with her in terms of what happens in the comics. Because up next, Starlight goes to her asking about BCL. Starlight finds out that it was Maeve who gave Butcher that heads up, and she reveals, this is why I've been training, this is why I've not been drinking, like, I am getting ready to finally stick it to Homelander. And this kind of turns into a point of, like, where she was saying you really care this little about yourself, and she says, I kind of have it coming, which I do feel like foreshadows Maeve's death. I think that one's quite an obvious one, but also she feels this kind of guilt, like, for all the things maybe she views herself as complicit in with regards to Homelander in the past, of being in the Seven, the flight, in where she wanted to save people, but she hasn't. She technically hasn't really been able to expose it because of being under threat of Homelander. It's, she definitely feels like she's, at this point, ready to kamikaze if it gets Butcher a couple more seconds. Which is where we get the A-Train things in this episode. So he's still trying to kind of get back some relevancy, you could say, since he can't use his powers literally. I guess in another way, he's trying to attain power through this branding, another commercial. But you can clearly tell, like, Ashley and the people at Vought aren't really caring so much about A-Train. If anything, they're just maybe going along with maintaining his image because he's in the Seven, but they don't actually care about him. They just want to maintain the speedster image, if you will, to that of the public, so they are kind of entertaining it a little bit. But since A-Train is so desperate, this is where we get the kind of evolution of the story of where Starlight goes to Supersonic, asks for his help when the time comes, and he agrees to it, and I was like, no, like, you know, when we get the scenes later, of other bits and pieces where we had that 7 meeting and whatnot. I know I'm going a bit all over the place right now, but just to try and keep it connected. As soon as he was saying, well, maybe there's something we can do about it, I was like, don't trust A-Train. Like, go to Starlight first and get her opinion on it. So yeah, I think we all knew in this moment in the elevator, like, exactly what A-Train was going to do. Ultimately, someone like A-Train who's lost everything that he had, like his power, because if he uses it again, he'll have like another heart attack. Seeing the Deep being favored over him, he just wants to get back in. He doesn't really care about taking down Homelander. Even though he's angry at him, he'd rather get the power back. But the fight between the Deep and A-Train was pretty funny, punching him in the gills. But I'm kind of a bit wondering as to where's the Deep gonna go this season? Like, really, where is the end destination here? I mean, we all know that Homelander doesn't give a crap about him. I guess his story for now is to kind of just keep that beat going of how everyone in the 7, apart from Maeve, I guess, and Starlight and Supersonic, but, you know, the original kind of players like the Deep, A-Train, they squabble over power and are constantly trying to, you know, climb above the other person and push the other person down. I like that scene we got with Butcher and MM talking about the history of why he was recruited into the boys, saying that he spoke to the blokes that he went through basic with, and they said to the man that he was the one who held the platoon together. Bottom line for Butcher, no matter how hard he's going to be, he knows that MM will always kind of look after the boys. Then we get that scene with Kimiko going in, doing Nina's job, and this definitely takes a very interesting turn. She didn't want to be his gun, but it's kind of this one last job, as Frenchie says, you know, we got to be there, do this job for the boys, and then maybe we can go out and go wherever we want. So she does this. She gets shot in the head. That was pretty cool with how the bullet was being pushed out like that. I definitely found it hilarious how they were playing with some 7 toys, I guess you could say. As per usual with the boys, this was this episode of the season's opportunity to go absolutely nuts, even though at the end of the episode with freaking Jamie, the hamster, that was another moment. I think we all look forward to each and every episode. What exactly are they going to pull out the bag? And with Kimiko, it was shoving a freaking toy through the back of someone's head through their mouth. So yeah, we got some crazy ass shit this episode once again, of course. Now, when that press conference did happen, we have Maeve and Starlight absolutely furious. Now, we know that Homelander knew this was coming, and he even said to the 7, and mainly to Maeve and Starlight, I guess, that, you know, those who are hiding behind Stan Edgar's little apron, yeah, that's not happening anymore. Like, genuinely, you can't do anything about whatever I'm gonna do next. So once again, just bolstering things with Maeve to want to kill Homelander even more, and I think that will lead to like a really kind of sad death. I've got a feeling like it's gonna get to the point where they're trying to take out Homelander or something, and it's gonna backfire. Maybe setting up the boys season 4 to be like pure Brightburn kind of mode Homelander. He just like grabs Maeve, crinks her by the neck, the weapon fails or whatever they're going to use to, you know, try and take Homelander down, and it's just going to go bad. But again, would love your theories there, but Maeve's death prediction is definitely number 1, I think, for most people. That's when we get that scene with Homelander going to Newman, as we briefly discussed earlier. Shows her the file, as we said, and also, I guess, hands her that Compound V that she uses later for Zoe. I wonder if he knew what she was going to use it for, because again, she did that, I guess, to even protect Zoe from people like Homelander. I thought that speech with Giancarlo Esposito against Homelander, basically just, you're just bad product, no matter what, you're in control, yeah, well done, like, I'm now being kind of exposed for this, that, and the other, but eventually, probably soon, the world will recognize you for the pitiful disappointment you are. The company is yours, no one left to stand up to you, but I think you'll come to sorely regret that. And that in of itself is kind of a foreshadowing in terms of, I guess, with Homelander or a bully or anyone walking over people for so long, the kettle will boil and explode back in Homelander's face. The issue with this situation is that you're doing it to someone who's kind of nearly invincible. So when you try and do that, you might fail and invoke such a wrath that would just wipe you out. And that kind of was warned this episode with the death of Supersonic. So the boys get in the compound. They have no idea what this weapon is supposed to look like. Frenchie finds the hamster Jamie, and that was just hilarious, where things get wild, and Jamie, obviously having been experimented on as a Compound V'd up freaking hamster, attacks the Russian military as well. It gets to the point of where they're kind of running out of ammo and they're all pinned down, so Butcher's just like, hello, and walks out. And I felt bad for MM, because he was like, no, like, he probably thought he was going to do like a kamikaze suicide run or something, just walk out and just be a distraction, but he was taking all the bullets. He lasered them down. Just when MM was about to get shot, we have Hughie, you know, desperately reach out and try and save him, and he teleports naked, which kind of, you know, made me laugh because, again, he's super strong. He punched like a hole through him, so he's got all the kind of typical attributes, I suppose, but his special power is teleportation. But it made me think, like, with superheroes in this universe, I guess, like, if you were a superhero on the 7 that could teleport, how would Hughie, like, not get naked every single time? Like, could they design a suit that stays with him when he teleports? I don't know about that, but we did have that kid teleport in the home, and he maintained his clothes. But I guess maybe Hughie's is a little bit of a variation, that's why he's naked, but I feel like this could lead to quite a few funny moments in the episodes ahead when he's going to use that teleportation. That's if, to be honest, that's if he does use the compound temp V again. But yeah, you clearly see the disapproval from various members of the boys here. I mean, some people expect it from Butcher to an extent, even though it's quite against his character, but it is just temporary after all. But the disappointment in MM's face, Kimiko's looking at Hughie, he's like really like, you know, thrilled with the power. You can see that he really is enjoying it and that he's kind of happy that he feels powerful for once and doesn't really understand why others are turning their nose up at him. But whatever the Russians did to Soldier Boy, as Butcher said, he never had that before. It allows his little outburst of energy to hit Kimiko, but she's not healing. So this, I think, makes me think that obviously even Maeve thought that there was a weapon there or something like that, but there is no literal weapon that you just shoot and take down Homelander. It just turns out that Soldier Boy's new ability with the experiments that he's been subjected to, if that energy is discharged on Homelander, to depower him to a point of where maybe other people could take him down. So maybe he's not invincible. Maybe it takes away some of his impenetrable skin or like whatever. So if at some point in the season they manage to talk Soldier Boy into taking Homelander down, or at least aiming one of his shots at Homelander, which would be pretty hard to do because he could just zoom out the way, you have to think, just like with Kimiko, it might take away a lot of his powers so that everyone else like Starlight, Maeve, Butcher, whoever else could just go ham on Homelander, and maybe he's weak enough to completely decimate. But again, I don't think it's going to work out as they would hope. But I do think they might talk Soldier Boy into it, because I don't think Soldier Boy is going to be a fan of Homelander and vice versa. And I know we've already discussed Supersonic's death quite a bit, but yeah, it's definitely making me think, what will this mean for Starlight now? Is she going to be too scared to do anything because she's absolutely petrified that that would be Hughie? I mean, think about it. Homelander, especially as, you know, Stan Edgar is like kind of out the picture in a way. He is on top of the company. It doesn't even matter if he kills a new member of the Seven. And he can get away with it, I suppose. So now Starlight might be so afraid that, God, like, you know, Hughie could just get done and dusted like that. As I mentioned in my last video covering episodes 1 to 3, I do expect things to get very, very dark between Starlight and Homelander. And now things have taken the next step of dark. How much darker could it even get between them? Like, again, he is at the top. He's got no one to answer to. So guys, really enjoyable episode. I think more than anything, I'm looking forward to next episode. Now that we have Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy out there in the world, we know from the trailers this will lead to a little bit of like, oh, you know, Captain America back in the modern world again, but also releasing his energy, because I think it will build up kind of to a point, as we see in the trailers, where he just has to let it go and he'll hit like a public building or like a house. Maybe innocents will be heard. So I do have some idea of what to expect, but yeah, let me know your theories. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. Stuff is really getting crazy. I'm really enjoying the just absolute clusterfuck anarchy that The Boys is. Would appreciate a like if you did get this far in a video. Maybe consider subscribing, because I think you might like some of the other content that we cover here on the channel, such as last night. If you want to know more about the Joker 2 title and what that could mean for the plot, check out that video. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.